Good afternoon to all of you. I'd like to welcome today Chairman John Comell, who's here with us from the New York Power Authority, Gil Quinones, who you know well. He's been in this room many times, making many presentations. Ken Bukowski, Vice President for Government Affairs, Business Counsel of the State of New York State, and Michelle Brunette, CFO for Oriole's Dope Products. Thank you very much for being with us. Today's announcement is going to be about business development. As you know, we've been working very hard for about the past 2 years to turn around the state's economy and focus on creating jobs. Strong business climate feeds the state, feeds local government, allows us to do a lot of good things. There have been economic challenges for us these past few years. There have been economic challenges for the state for the past few decades. In my opinion, the state was asleep at the switch for a long time in trying to keep and attract business in New York. And we're trying to turn that around. We're trying to turn it around quickly and dramatically. I think we've made good progress. We have a twofold approach when it comes to business development, business retention. First is removing obstacles. Do no harm. Second is create incentives, stimulus. How do we reach out and actually affirmatively keep and attract business? Today's announcement is more on the knocking down institutional barriers. If you say to businesses across the state, name the difficulties in doing business in the state of New York, the first thing they will point to is taxes. If you probe on taxes, they will say property taxes, interestingly enough. After taxes will come the cost of energy. And the cost of energy is very high in this state. It's roughly 65% higher than the national average. This is a major problem for businesses that use energy intensively. There was a program that the state had that was supposed to address this. It was called Power for Jobs. It operated on an annual basis. Nobody was really sure if it was going to be renewed. It wasn't highly effective. We came in, we redid the program, changed it substantially, and it's called ReCharge New York, and it's operated by the New York Power Authority. And with that, I will turn it over to Gil Quinones to talk to us about ReCharge New York.
Thank you very much, Governor. Our Chairman, John Comell, and I are just thrilled to be here with you to recognize and to highlight the ReCharge New York program. Over the past 21 months, Governor Cuomo's top priority has been to revitalize the state's economy, to create jobs, and to restore New York's reputation as a world-class place to do business. Central to this effort is the creation of the 10 Regional Economic Development Councils, which turned around Albany's top-down approach to economic development. ReCharge New York is one of the tools in the toolbox of the regional economic development process. ReCharge New York is a statewide economic development power program. It is designed to retain and create jobs through allocation of low-cost power. It was announced by the governor in his first State of the State address and signed into law on April 14, 2011. There's a total of 910 megawatts in the ReCharge New York program. Think of a megawatt as the capacity of power required to supply about 800 to 1,000 homes. Today is the third announcement of ReCharge New York power allocations. The two previous announcements have helped over 600 businesses and 76 not-for-profit institutions. They resulted in the retention of 385,000 jobs and a commitment of $31 billion in projected capital investment. Why is ReCharge New York so much better than the old Power for Jobs program? After the Power for Jobs program expired, it only guaranteed power savings for 1 year at a time, and the program was subject to uncertainty of annual renewals or extensions. Businesses were not able to make investment and hiring decisions under those circumstances, as the governor outlined. It was really only under Governor Cuomo's leadership that that dynamic was broken, and ReCharge New York got done and became a reality. ReCharge New York is a 7-year commitment with an option for extension, and it doubled the total size of available low-cost power for allocations. Finally, we have a program that allows companies to plan and make long-term investment decisions. With that said, it is also important to note that ReCharge New York has a robust annual compliance review process. We can take power allocations away or reduce them based on the performance of the companies relative to their jobs and capital investment commitments. Just this morning, the New York Power Authority's Board of Trustees, led by Chairman John Commell, approved the allocation of ReCharge New York power to 38 businesses across the state, which is an allocation of up to 29.3 megawatts of lower-cost power. In return, these businesses will create 3,200 new jobs and have promised to commit approximately $7 billion in capital investments. Today's allocations are, for the first time, tailored to job creation, business attraction, and/or expansion. Here are the recipients of ReCharge New York power allocations for business attraction and/or expansion. There's a wide variety of businesses in terms of industry sector size and location. Shown on the map of New York, you can see the location of these 38 businesses that receive power allocation. And if we layer the previous 2 rounds of ReCharge New York power allocation announcements, you will see that they are located across the state. So far, really an overwhelming success. Now, it's been said that success breeds success, and in turn, builds confidence. The transformation of our state over the last 21 months is clearly working. There's still a lot of work to be done, but there is no doubt that under the governor's leadership, we are headed in the right direction. Again, thank you very much, Governor. And once again, to the recipients of ReCharge New York, congratulations. Now, I now have the privilege to introduce Ken Bukowski from the Business Council of the State of New York. Ken.
Thanks, Gil. Governor, on behalf of Heather Bruschetti, on behalf of the Business Council and the 3,000 private sector employers we represent across New York State, thank you for inviting us here today. Access to reliable and affordable energy is essential to energy-intensive businesses remaining competitive. This is especially true for manufacturers. That's why the Business Council, which is a statewide lobbying organization, has long advocated for a statewide low-cost power program to help energy-intensive businesses, manufacturers, and others invest, grow, and keep jobs in New York State. As Gil said, we had Power for Jobs for a number of years. At the end, it didn't work well. It was closed to new business. Reform finally came in 2011 when Governor Cuomo worked with the state legislature, with the Business Council and other business stakeholders to enact the ReCharge New York program. We think it was first implemented beginning in January of this year. It's been a great success. We represent a number of employers who are taking advantage of the program. ReCharge reflects the long-term needs of employers. Employers need certainty to make long-term investment decisions, and ReCharge is a permanent program that offers long-term contracts up to 7 years to businesses who agree to both job and capital investment commitments in New York State. The program is allowing participating businesses to control a key operating cost and is helping making them stay and locate in New York State very attractive. Today's approvals are especially rewarding because they are based on new capital investment, new long-term commitments to the state, and represent another example how New York, under Governor Cuomo's leadership, is helping develop a better business climate in New York. This is a very good day for New York State, and on behalf of the Business Council, I wanted to congratulate those businesses that were selected for awards today, congratulate them for their new investments in New York State. Our thanks to NYPA for a very well-designed and implemented program, and thanks again to Governor Cuomo and his team for helping create a more economically competitive New York State. With that, I'd like to introduce Michelle Brunette, who's the CFO and General Manager for Oriole Dough Products in Utica, which is one of the businesses receiving a ReCharge allocation today. Michelle?
Thank you, Ken. And I also would like to thank Governor Cuomo for allowing us to participate in this exciting event. I am the CFO and General Manager of Oriole Foods, which is located in Utica, New York. We're a manufacturer of frozen dough products, and we service the entire North America continent. And we have been in business since 1924, so we've got a lot of heritage with this company. We are a frozen dough manufacturer. Our key products are basically frozen pizza. We do rolls, breads, cookies, and we also have ventured into the gluten-free arena. And we are very proud to say that all of this is manufactured in the state of New York. Since 2009, we've expanded our manufacturing facility from 70,000 square feet to 130,000 square feet, adding 3 new lines, including a completely dedicated gluten-free room, and more than doubled our staff. We have the opportunity to increase our revenue by an additional 50%, but we're in desperate need of some capital help and some energy savings costs. Electricity accounts for a major portion of our operating expenses, and the ReCharge New York program is going to be a tremendous help to this company. It's lessening our operating expenses, and more importantly than that, it's given us a real good competitive edge. That's why we're so honored that we received this power allocation today, and we are so pleased that the state is investing in us and allowing us to continue to grow with the state. In addition to that, we plan to add more production lines. We also plan to put in a holding freezer, which we desperately need, and the plan is to increase our staffing by at least an additional 50 people. Upstate New York has experienced some really hard times, some economic times. This low-cost power will go a long way to helping the whole Mohawk Valley economic environment. This is extremely important to Orioles, and this is extremely important to Utica, New York. This new power program initiated by Governor Cuomo will save Orioles more than $1 million over the next 7 years. We believe these savings will actually be more as power costs go up over the next several years. At the moment, we cannot fill all our orders because we are receiving them faster than we can generate them, and we actually had to turn away some very large jobs. But this expansion will allow us to install new production lines and allow us to bring in 50 more people to help us get to our goal. Receiving the additional ReCharge allocation for the expansion is critical in our decision to move forward, and we're very appreciative that New York State is investing in us. You should also know that thanks to ReCharge New York, we've already added 10 additional positions. The ReCharge program is helping us not only weather the current economic storm, but it's making us a more competitive, more viable company in the Utica market and in the state of New York. On behalf of Orioles and countless other businesses throughout the state, I would like to thank the governor for helping us thrive in the state of New York. And it is now my honor to introduce the governor of the state of New York, Andrew Cuomo. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And let me once again congratulate Michelle on the grant today and thank the Business Council for their help on this program. Gil Quinones and Chairman Comel, thank you for your leadership at NYPA. Howard Glazer is with us, the Director of State Operations, who's been supervising the program. This is, as you heard, this is exactly what we've been talking about. It's about creating jobs, increasing economic opportunity, and this happens to address one of the real institutional challenges that this state faces, which is the cost of energy. It's not a perfect solution. I'd love to be able to say to businesses we're going to be able to reduce the cost of energy all across the board, but it's not realistic, and ReCharge New York is a very positive institutional answer to this problem that has plagued the state for a long time. So once again, congratulations to all involved. Any questions from our friends in the press?
Governor, Global Foundries accounts for about half of the jobs and half the power that's going out in this allocation. Just want to know, is this new investment or investment since the initiation of the Global Foundries project? And could you talk just generally about the role that Global Foundries plays, kind of taking so much of, and I guess you can say giving back so much as well?
Yeah, okay, so let me ask Gil. I don't know the specifics on how what grants were picked and why, so I'll ask Gil Quinones to respond.
It is the part of the original investment of Global Foundries. I would like to note that in this round of allocations, we are only allocating 29.3 megawatts of lower cost power. In the ReCharge New York legislation, there are, of the 910 total megawatts, 200 are earmarked for new businesses or expansion of existing businesses. So we still have about 170 megawatts to allocate, and that will be processed in the next rounds of the CFA process. So we look forward, and our board looks forward to allocate more to businesses across the state.
Governor, the fourth paragraph of your news release reads, the power allocations announced today by the governor were approved this morning by the New York Power Authority Board of Trustees and are the first allocations from the ReCharge New York program to be tied directly to job creation. Statewide, 38 businesses across New York State will create an estimated 3,200 jobs as a result of low-cost power allocated through the third round of the ReCharge New York Power Program, end quote. Yet, as the gentleman pointed out, more than half of those jobs listed as new, Mr. Coney has just said, were in the original job allocation, so they wouldn't be new. So the news release is inflated by at least 50%, isn't it?
No, it's not. I mean, Global Foundries is still a company that is going to expand. It is not an existing, ongoing concern that will receive the power allocation. So it is a new allocation under the category of business expansion.
It's a new allocation, but those jobs are already in existence, are they not?
No, they are not.
What are the people up there in Malta doing?
This is in addition to what is there already at this point.
You're saying they are creating new jobs.
Yes.
When will that be?
I don't know the exact timeline of the hiring of those jobs, but they are going to be a part of the expansion of that facility. I can get back to you on that exact schedule.
These are all, just so we're clear, these are all existing businesses. The Orioles is an existing business that has a number of employees that are there today. These grants are to allow the creation of new jobs. So what Mr. Quinones is saying on Global Foundries is a growing concern, and this grant is to facilitate further growth.
The original allocation of the state was $1.8 billion to create 1,200 jobs. That only began operating last year. So if I'm reading this release correctly, you're saying that they're going to add more than 100% jobs, 133% more jobs, 1,600. But we're not clear on when exactly those extra jobs are going to be kicking in. I mean, that's big news in this area.
Well, you're assuming that the 50% equates to 50% of the 3,200. I don't know if that's accurate, but Mr. Quinones will get you the numbers on exactly how they came up with that number.
Can you say when you expect the next round of allocations to be made?
Well, it will be part of the second round of the CFA process. it will be sometime in the fall.
No doubt this is a very good program, but I think if you speak to a lot of businesses and manufacturers, they'll say the taxes on utilities are way too high in New York right now. I was wondering if you had any thoughts on that.
They'll say taxes are too high in New York. They will say that. They say that to me all the time. And we're doing everything we can to reduce taxes all across the board. As I started by saying, we're going forward, Kyle, on two tracks, right? First, how do you address the institutional barriers that the state poses to business? Second, what are your affirmative, creative, aggressive efforts? The affirmative strategy for us is the Regional Economic Development Councils. How do you reach out? How do you come up with, facilitate business growth in the state, attract business? And that's sort of an affirmative, offensive strategy through the Regional Economic Development Councils, primarily, although not exclusively. On the institutional barriers, you will hear taxes all day long. You can walk into any business in this state and say, what's the number one reason why you would want to leave? What's the number one obstacle to growth? And they will say taxes. And by the way, they will say property taxes. They will not say utility taxes. They will say property taxes first. Before income tax, before anything else, they'll say property tax. As you know, we've been working to address that. They'll then say the cost of power. This is not a perfect solution because by definition it's episodic, but it is the best that we can do thus far. And in turning around the tax situation in New York, we've made dramatic progress over the past 21 months. We're not where we would like to be, but we've made great progress. And I think we have credibility with the business community on both levels of the discussion.
Yeah, but on another energy issue, we saw the DEC's announcement regarding hydrofracking last week. There's a thought process among some that to delay is essentially to deny a process that has gone on for more than 4 years at this point.
How poetic. Let's say that justice delayed is justice denied. Or energy delayed is energy denied. Hydrofracking delayed is hydrofracking denied. Okay. I got it. I just wanted to get the thrust of the question.
Well, do you agree with the thrust of that statement? And is this, do you think that the calls for a health impact analysis may have been a delay tactic sought by some people?
No, I like the poetry of the question, but I disagree with the substance of it. The hydrofracking, for those of you who haven't had the pleasure of listening to the ongoing commentary on hydrofracking in this room, we've said all along the decision will be made based on the science, right? It was not predetermined. It was not a political position. Let's get the facts. Let's make a decision on the facts. I understand the emotion. I deal with the emotion every day on both sides of the issue, right? So we get the emotion, we get the rhetoric, we get the hyperbole. Let's get some facts and data and some science, and we'll make the decision on the science, which is what should be done here. There was a concern that was raised to DEC by a number of the groups, primarily environmental groups. They wanted an independent review of public health consequences. And they said it should be done by an independent panel of experts. DEC has rejected that suggestion, saying they believe the essence of the independent review is the role of government, which it is. Government is the independent, objective reviewer. To go to a private firm to do an independent review makes no sense to me. First, a private firm may very well have an opinion, pro or con. Private firm may have interests, economic interests. That's what government is supposed to do. DEC also said, to the extent the point is you may need a discrete expertise to look at public health issues concerning hydrofracking because it's a discrete area. The government will avail itself of those resources by using outside experts to advise government. But, John, the government retains the pen. The government makes the decision. The advisors can advise Dr. Shaw, Department of Health Commissioner, can advise Joe Martens, DEC Commissioner, but the government makes the decision. It's the government's pen. That, I think, is the intelligent approach to this issue. We're not turning over control to an independent panel. Yes, we'll avail ourselves of the advice and opinion of experts, but it's up to government. Will that be a more thorough review? Yes. Will that give us more data and more science? Yes. But that's what we told the people of the state it was always going to be about.
That being
Do you
said,
think that
we're into.
fracking could happen this year, or is it put off for another?
Excuse me one second, Karen. Just let John finish the question. Go ahead.
It's going to be a similar question. But that being said, I mean, we're into the fifth year of the review at this point. I mean, is there a point where you decide that it has been going on too long?
Well, first, I've been governor for about 21 months, right? So 5 years is not really my time frame. It's done when it's done, John. You know, I am not going to, when I said it's not predetermined, to say, well, I want an answer by next week. Well, then what happened to science? And what happened to facts? You know, now it's a political timetable imposed on what we said was an informational scientific process. So when the DEC says, we have concluded the process because we have the facts and we've assessed the facts, then we'll make the decision.
What have they told you how long the study might take? Is it months, years?
I do not know, Karen. I don't think they know at this time. DEC is using the Department of Health to identify some outside experts to do the review, and I'm sure when they have an estimate, they'll tell us. By the way, also, excuse me one second, the delay. You know, there's two stages to this process, just so we have full facts and we all anticipate the obvious reality. The state will do a report, will come up with a conclusion, and it will publish the conclusion. And unless I'm very mistaken, there will then be litigation that commences. And there'll be an environmental review, and then there'll be subsequent litigation. Doing the environmental review properly can actually reduce the net amount of time it takes. Because a more thorough environmental review, the higher likelihood that it will be sustained by a court. So I reject the point, John, that necessarily because you spend more time on an environmental review, you're delaying. You could actually be expediting the process net because what could be months or years of litigation may be avoided. We have the same issue on the Tappan Zee Bridge. You know, we have, Tappan Zee Bridge is also a controversial project. There are very few projects nowadays that are not controversial. God bless our society. Everybody has an opinion about everything, and everyone has access to the court system. So, but the Tappan Zee Bridge is another project like that, and we've been very diligent on the environmental work. Why? Because if there is a challenge in that case, we want to make sure that we're prepared. And the environmental review that we provided to the federal government for their acceptance or declination, we wanted to make sure it was the best possible environmental review that we could do. So sometimes spending a little more time and doing it right actually pays off. Your justice delayed, justice denied. Haste makes waste, John. That's true, too.
Governor, are you looking at new ways to privatize NARA? Can you confirm that for us?
We are looking at a number of reforms to NYRA. As you know, Zach, we're going to be putting a new board in place to basically take control. And then how you do the business of, quote unquote, horse racing and what is racing in the future, and how do you really incorporate all the knowledge and potential of the entertainment industry, which is a big component of this, is something we're working through. But we have our great Director of State Operations here, Howard Glazer, who's in charge of that project. Anything you want to add to that?
I mean, you know, there are a lot of ideas that are out there for restructuring NYRA. I think the state has made a determination based on the bill that was passed by the legislature and signed by the governor that the prior NYRA structure wasn't functioning properly, hence the state control takeover. What the ongoing future structure of NYRA is one of the things that the board is charged with in the legislation, is how will that operate. The state is not going to be in there for permanent control. There's also a 3-year limitation in the bill. So one of the first jobs of the board is to look at this question. What's the best way to get value for the taxpayers? What's the best way to strengthen horse racing in New York and make it as positive an experience as possible for the bettors and fans of horse racing? So that's in front of the board when those appointments are made.
Legally, Governor, don't they have to retain NYRA in some form? Wasn't that part of the renewal and the transfer of the track, ownership to the state?
It's two different things, Ken. It's the franchise is NYRA's. They have a long-term franchise. The operations of NYRA, which is what's at issue here, because that's what has been flawed, can be done in a variety of ways. No one option is, been selected, but there are many ideas on the table, and we'll look at that. So it's two different things: the operations versus the legal franchise.
Governor, any news on when the 45% increase of the rate will take effect?
No news.
Any news on 2-year spending freeze?
No news.
Governor, in your planning for the budget and for the upcoming session, are you specifically counting on Shelley Silver being the Speaker of the Assembly?
In doing my budget?
As you're preparing for next year, maybe for a December session, if that happens, is your anticipation, your assumption at this point that Shelley Silver will be Speaker?
I do the budget on the numbers, Mike, so I don't really have an assumption as to who's the Speaker, who's in charge of the Senate. Are they Democrats, are they Republicans? I leave that up to the legislature. But I have no reason to believe Sheldon Silver is not going to be the Speaker, either.
As you are doing your budget now, are you concerned at all about this congressional, and what kind of impact might it have, this congressional committee's charge that the state has overbilled $16 billion in Medicaid costs? What would that do to your budget, and also what would it do, do you think, for the federal waiver you just applied for Medicaid?
That's an issue that has been going on for many, many years, Ken. So there was no news in what the congressional committee, well, there was news in what the congressional committee said. I think that was part of the reason why they said it, was to generate news interest. But it was a topic that has been discussed for years in the state government. And for months and months with the federal government. So there was no new news from our point of view.
Can we go back to ReCharge New York just for a second?
That would be novel to talk about the topic at the press conference, but yes, we can do that.
Global Foundries, as has been mentioned here, Global Foundries has gotten a lot of incentives, grants, tax breaks, loans, et cetera, and has made certain commitments about job creation. I think that's true of a lot of businesses on here. I believe it's true of Fresh Direct in New York City. And I think the question I'm unclear on is, are the jobs listed in this press release, are they on top of jobs that these companies have already committed to in return for other incentives? Or is this just how many jobs total they're planning to create?
Yeah, I think that is the question that I heard earlier, Bill. And I think that's what Gil is going to get back to us on.
Correct.
Oh, you're not answering that right now?
Well, your question is, I don't know that Gil knows. These are, quote unquote, new jobs. Your question is, were they new jobs that were counted in the original Global Foundries announcement, I think is what you're asking. Yeah. I don't think you know that answer, Gil.
Not for Global Foundries, but for the others, they are incremental. Meaning on top of it's for new jobs.
They are in addition.
In addition. Well, if there were other benefits, they could have been included, and that's what I'm going to get back to you on.
I know you said that a lot of what happens by the end of the year depends on what happens on Election Day in November. But sitting here now, how likely or unlikely do you think a special session will be, and what do you think that special session might include? What would you like to see included in the December special session?
You know, Nick, I don't know. I do believe, first, it's going to be up to the legislature, and it's going to depend on what happens on Election Day and who the people decide consists of the legislature. We have a lot of unfinished work to do, and we have new work that we need to do. So we've had very orderly sessions, but there are things that I would have liked to see done that weren't done. I would have liked to see the minimum wage increased, as you know. I would have liked to see us find an answer that starts to address the stop and frisk issue in New York City. There are reforms that we need to do. So there's more work to do if they want to do it, and if we could come up with agreement on what needs to be done. And many of these issues we didn't agree last session, right? So that all remains to be seen.
Pay raise be used as terrorism, all of this, to get them to do that?
Well, you know, whenever you have an agreement on legislation, whether it's on the federal level, state level, or local level, it tends to be a certain transactional quality, right? You have a Senate, you have a Congress, you have an Assembly, you have Democrats, you have Republicans. So an agreement, by definition, is normally the exchange of benefits and burdens. So in that regard, there would have to be a piece of legislation that everybody wanted to pass, right? But you're way ahead of ourselves here. We haven't had an intelligent conversation about it because you can't, because you just don't know who you're talking to, literally, until you know who won the election.
Governor, as a follow-up to the Sheldon Silver question before, do you think it's wrong that one of his employees is sort of masquerading as a woman and defending him in the Vito Lopez scandal?
Eric, do you really want me to get into talking about men masquerading as women? Do you? I bet you would. I don't have any comment on the situation. As disappointing as that is to you.
Offshore wind is in New York's future?
Is offshore wind in New York's future? Wind is, I hope wind as a source of renewable energy is in New York's future, and we're working very hard to develop it. Specific projects, I'll leave that to, I guess you're referring to LIPA. I'll leave the specific projects to LIPA, but wind as a renewable source of energy is very, very important to the state.
Governor, following up on that, you obviously will appoint the majority of the membership of the new board. Do you feel that the tracks would be better off in the hands of a private contractor or a private operator than in the hands of NYRA?
We're not starting with a feeling, Glenn, or a predisposition. It's one of the issues that NYRA will look at.
You don't have any sense of where this should
No, I'm not really a horse racing expert. I don't know this industry especially well, so no. That's the point of the exercise of appointing the board, is to do the study and the research to answer that question. If we knew the answer, we wouldn't need any of this.
Governor, have you decided on who will be the chairman of the board yet?
Soon. No, Betty.
There was a pretty detailed report in the paper this morning that seemingly came from your administration saying that you do have a direction you're heading on NYRA.
And your point is?
Is that an accurate description? Was the story an accurate description of the administration's thinking?
Yeah, I haven't read the story, Ken, so I couldn't tell you. Yeah, well, I only read your stories, Ken.
On an even lighter note than men masquerading as women on our blog, knowing as you do that the children of New York model their behavior after your own, do you regret not wearing a life jacket when you're out in the community?
Do you see what I have to put up with? You think being governor is easy? I'd rather be in the dough business. We have laws. The behavior I would like to model is the behavior prescribed by our laws. And we have laws on the use of and wearing of life jackets. Under 12 years old, you should wear a life jacket. That is the law, and that's what I would want people under 12 years old to do. I also believe there's a carve-out on later in the year. I believe in the winter months, there's actually an additional provision for people to wear life preservers. I'm not sure, but I would check now that you asked the question. But the law is the law. Children, people under 12 have to wear a life preserver. Over 12, You're free to throw your life away however you would like in a canoe. But now that you bring up the question, there was a statement in your newspaper, because that was a story I did read, Ken. I do read the TU, I want you to know.
I admire your reading this.
The story had a line that was not totally accurate, and I don't like to complain about news stories, Michelle. I don't like to complain in general, especially about news stories, because it really does no good for you and actually makes the situation worse. I believe the rough quote was, "The governor caught a fish too small to keep," or words to that effect. That is an inaccurate statement, Casey. The fish was not that small. Also, it was a statement that demeaned. It was a statement that suggested, it questioned my fishing skills, really, in many ways. That's what it was. That was the clear implication of that statement. Governor caught a fish too small to keep. I mean, just think about that. What a damning comment. And it wasn't even true. It was a fair-sized fish. I would call it a long 8 inches. It was 8 inches, but it looked bigger. Right? When you saw the fish, almost tipped over the boat. The fish was so big coming in. Beautiful native brook trout. Could have kept it by law, could have kept it. But I practice catch and release fishing. I would like to model that. I always release the fish. Sometimes if the fish is too badly hurt, then it's different. But I practice catch and release fishing, and it was a beautiful fish. And I could have kept it by law, by morality, by ethics, by any standard we know. Anything else?
The Air Force Base in Rome is planning to open up a little bit for commercial traffic. Is the state involved in that at all?
Not that I know of. Anybody know different? Not that I know of, but we can check.
Any update? I think Tom Precious had an article yesterday that the states and the bills were close to an extension on the lease agreement out in Orchard Park. Can you update that at all?
We have made good progress in the conversations, but this is a complicated transaction. It's a lot of money, and it's very important to Western New York. So we're making good progress, and the conversations are good, and the conversations are productive, but we do not have an agreement. Could NYPA have a role in running LIPA? Sounds like it should, doesn't NYPA, LIPA? That's one of the issues we're looking at going forward. Okay, thank you all very much. Congratulations, Michelle, and thank you to Gil and Chairman Comel.